You should plan for your retirement very differently if you're single, even if you're married, but you don't have children. Because if you don't leave $1 million or $2 million or $3 million to certain heirs, that means you can retire a whole lot earlier. A lot of you have read the book Die with Zero, and if you haven't, I invite you to check it out. It's a great read where you really start to think differently about your retirement because you don't get any extra points for dying the richest person at your grave. I'm going to show you a real case study today of a client of mine who is single. They don't have any kids. They don't want to leave $2-3 million at the end. They want to make sure they're getting the most life out of their money and that they're not working unnecessarily. So I'm going to show you a real case study. My client's 57 with $1.5 million. Let's have some fun. If you don't already know, my name is Taublieb. I'm a certified financial planner. I'm the host of the Early Retirement Podcast, and I'm the vice president at Root. If you want to retire early and you want to optimize your taxes, your investments, your withdrawal strategy, your estate, your healthcare, you're in the right spot, and I invite you to subscribe. So let's go ahead and hop in. So you can see I changed the name just for security purposes, but Tim here, Tim is 57 years old. Tim's got $50,000 in his savings account, $1.5 million between brokerage and an IRA, and he's got a property with a mortgage right now, $450,000. He actually loves where he lives. He's in Colorado, and so he's like, hey, I'm in a good spot, don't want to move, just FYI, do I need to have a mortgage before I retire? I was like, no, you can still have a mortgage and retire. He's wondering, am I in a good spot? He doesn't hate his job though, but he does want to know, am I in a good spot to retire? So when we first had a conversation, he's like, hey, I don't know how long I need to work, but I want to make sure I can bridge the gap. I go, bridge the gap? They go, yeah, how do I make sure I can tap into funds if I want to retire early? But that fact that, IRAs and Roth and 401ks, I can't touch that till 59 and a half. So I need enough to bridge the gap. So Tim was really smart early on, and he was saving outside of his 401k that he recently rolled over to an IRA because he left his job. And then he has a brokerage account, and that brokerage account, that's going to help him bridge the gap. So this is why he's in a stronger spot than he even thinks. But he's like, hey, am I in a good spot? I want to spend $7,000 a month. Right now, I also have my mortgage, which is about $3,000 a month. So he's like, hey, I'm spending about $10,000 a month. I bring in about $240,000 a year. Do I need $240,000 a year in retirement? I go, no. He goes, why? I go, well, $240,000 a year, that's what's coming in. But don't forget, right now, you're adding money to your 401k. So it's not like you need to recreate that same 240. And there's deductions for healthcare. And the fact that you're still saving to your brokerage account, that's going to go away. So you don't need $240,000. You don't need your paycheck to recreate your lifestyle in retirement. And so he's like, oh, okay, I get it. So I just need to make sure I'm covering what I need. You don't really need an emergency fund in retirement because an emergency fund is there to make sure that if an emergency happens, you don't have to pull from retirement accounts when you're switching jobs. Now, I always recommend having a sleep number, which is the number that's no financial analysis. It's, hey, what lets you sleep at night? For some clients, it's $30,000 at all times. For other clients, it's 50. For some clients, it's 100,000. But do you have enough that makes it so you always feel like you can sleep at night? So back to Tim's situation here. He won't spend $7,000 a month plus his mortgage, so $3,000. Really, we're looking at $10,000 a month for the rest of his retirement. He's like, hey, am I in a good spot to make this happen? And right off the bat, if we didn't have this on, so I'm going to show you what this means in a second. Right now, if you were to look at this, you go, hey, it looks like he's in a pretty good spot. He's got $1.5 million, and he doesn't want to die with $10 million. So here he is passing away with, let's call it $600,000. I was running some projections for health insurance for him, and whether it's $18,000 or $5,000 a month, $5,000 a year, this changes things. So let's assume it was $10,000, meaning $10,000 what he has to pay every single year until Medicare kicks in. He can actually keep it away a whole lot lower, but it makes a difference, but he's still okay. So here he is, and it looks like he's passing away with $1 million. So some of you are like, what's the problem here? This looks pretty perfect. Well, the problem is $1 million in the future is not going to be worth $1 million today. $1 million in the future will be the equivalent of having about $350,000. So what you don't want to do is cut it too close and go, ooh, now we're having to come out of pocket, for other things, long-term care, etc. And now there's a big issue. So right off the bat, I was like, hey, if you want to spend what you want to spend, that's great, but I want to make sure you understand the impact of expenses. Because once that mortgage is gone and you're, because this $7,000 a month, which is $84,000 a year, for him, that includes groceries and bills and gas and extra travel throughout retirement. He's looping that all in there. Plus, he's got his mortgage. But once that mortgage is gone and once he's at bare bones, he might be in his 70s and 80s going, hey, I don't need to spend as much. So maybe now let's assume I'm just going to cut this by $500 a month. So let's assume I show you that and watch what happens. Well, that's a big impact. That's $800,000 more dollars. And all I did was cut back expenses by $500 a month or $6,000 a year. So understand the impact of expenses. Now he's like, yeah, but I don't want to spend that. I told you I want to spend $7,000 a month, plus I've got my mortgage. I'm like, if that's what you want to do, let me show you. What if you work one more year? Meaning work until 64 and watch what happens. Whoa. Well, now all of a sudden we've got $2 million. Now we're in a good spot. And so some of you are going, whoa, but if I retire at 57, am I not in a good spot? In this particular case, no. Meaning I would not say, yeah, you're in a good spot to retire. Now, if you were 57 and you're like, hey, I've got my mortgage, $2,000-3,000 a month, and I'd love another $5,000 a month so we can meet our needs. Well, if you wanted to spend $5,000 a month and he wanted to retire right now, I'd say it's still cutting it just a little too close for me and a little bit more than just a little. But this is where you start to have the conversation. So understand the impact of your expenses plays a big role here, and healthcare, because if you retire earlier, it's more years where you have to make up those healthcare expenses. The thing is, though, even if if Tim said, hey, just what do I have to do to not work another day? I would say rather than do that, here's what I would encourage you to do. Is there maybe a position that you could do that would bring in some income, not as much as what you're making today, but would still allow you to kind of live your dream retirement and travel. So let's assume you brought in $50,000 a year. And Tim was like, all right, that doesn't come close to what I make today. So there's no way that's going to be helpful. I go, you're thinking about it wrong. $50,000 is way more valuable than you think, because it's not 50 that's coming in that I care about. It's 50,000 not being withdrawn from your portfolio that lets that keep compounding. And these are the years that you don't have Social Security and you don't have pension or rental income or anything. So it's only up to your portfolio at this time to bridge the gap. So let's assume he does retire this year at 57, but he does a job he likes just for 5 years. And people go, okay, he does a job, it's less stressful, he enjoys it. Well, all of a sudden, that makes a big impact. Just 5 years of part-time income, bringing in a minimal amount before he was going to run out. And now he's got $1.5 million, which would be the equivalent. Once again, we always want to toggle that on. The equivalent of having about $600,000. And he's like, hey, that's attractive to me because I don't have children. I don't want to pass away and give all my money to a bunch of heirs. So this is that next level of planning of starting to go, okay, what can I think through? You always want to understand, okay, what is the trade-off? And sometimes it's, hey, that changes things. I'll tell my clients, I go, hey, what if we just paid off the mortgage? Like what if you just paid it all off? You've got that brokerage account. That's one less expense you have to worry about. And I'll show clients that. And then they go, whoa, but if I pay off the mortgage, I have way less money. I go, yeah, you might sleep better, but you're going to have way less. It's not, the reason for it is if you have a really low mortgage rate, what you're doing is you're effectively paying that off at 2, 3, 4% versus letting that money grow, paying down essentially the minimum every single month and letting the rest grow for you a whole lot more efficiently. So sometimes this doesn't play a big impact. Other times it really does. So understanding mortgage and moving and all these moving pieces. The big one here is this assumes you get moderate growth throughout retirement. What if you don't? What if you get unlucky? And what if markets aren't doing well? Or you're just a naturally conservative investor? Well, all of a sudden, now we're running out of money because our investments aren't outpacing inflation. So I can tell a client, you can work longer, you can spend less. What's most important to you? And that's my job. I believe that's the job as an advisor, because someone once said, Ari, I want you to explain what is your job as an advisor in one sentence. And if I don't like your answer, I'm firing you, like before we even begin. I'm like, okay, here's my answer. My job is to quantify trade-offs so you understand the magnitude of those decisions. And that's how I view it, where it's my job not to tell you what to do or what not to do. It's, hey, here's a bunch of options. You could work longer. You could spend less. Here's the impact of that. Here's the tax strategy you want to implement. And by the way, I know you and you shared with me, you're not in the best health and you want to spend this amount. Let me be the first person to say, you're in a wonderful spot. Please do it. And no, this is not the year to do it because markets are doing X, Y, Z. So it's having a partner throughout retirement so you're making the decisions with confidence and that you don't have another job in retirement and you're playing advisor. Now, we've seen the opposite. What if markets are doing really well and they grow? Well, if markets are doing really well and you're comfortable with taking on a little bit more risk and volatility, well, it could mean you're in a good spot to retire. So I didn't come to Tim and go, no, 57, you're crazy. You can't retire. I said, hey, you're in a good spot. If you want to retire, but here's what you're spending. And he goes, oh, that doesn't let me do what I want to do. I say, great, here's an option, part-time income. I really just want to stop entirely. Okay, here's another option. You could kind of be more aggressive and we could have a conversation. I'm more of a conservative investor. I go, okay, if that's what you're sharing with me, that's great. Then we're going to work a few more years so you can spend what you want to spend. And he's like, great, I'm going to be more comfortable with that. Other people would take a different approach. So hopefully this quick video, just someone in maybe your situation, you're single, you don't have children, you're going, hey, how does this impact my specific plan? Hopefully this is helpful and gives you some more insight there. My only ask, because I know I don't get to work with all of you, is that you leave a comment letting me know if this video was helpful, what videos you're looking for. I love hearing from you all when you're planning to retire. It helps me understand what you're looking for. And this is your channel. This is not my channel. I make these videos based on what I think is helpful, based on conversations I have with clients, but you guys tell me what you'd like. Thank you for liking this video, and please subscribe for more information. Also, if you are looking for a holistic plan, it's what we do. So you can see on our website, you can apply to work with us. We love helping people get the most life out of their money.